Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in to Game Over Toronto following a Leafs win. Hey, they did it, everyone. They managed to win a game 4-3 in the shootout thanks to Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews finally getting chances in a breakaway competition. So, a win's a win, I guess. This was a tricky game because on the one hand, the first half of the game was brilliant defensively, even though the offense wasn't quite there. The Leafs generally played pretty good. They accomplished the things that Coach Craig Berube wanted to do in this game defensively, limiting mistakes, all that. And then in the span of 4 minutes, it all came undone, and the Leafs got caved in the rest of the night, made it to overtime and the shootouts. They survive overtime, and again, they win a breakaway competition, and they come away with 2 points, but definitely not a convincing win, definitely not a encouraging win. There were a lot of things that were wrong with this win, but the saving grace is at least they won. So I don't have to yell at them as much as I would have if they had lost. I was ready for them to lose in regulation. I was mentally preparing myself for that. The fact that they didn't, hooray. So, welcome into Game Over Toronto. My name is Zach Payne. I'm your host for this evening. Before we hop into it, make sure you hit like on the stream, subscribe to Game Over Toronto, follow Game Over on all social media platforms. You can follow me at ZachPayne41 on Twitter and Bluesky. And let's get into it. So, as always, when I'm doing these shows, by myself at least, I like to start with just a general game recap for this first segment. So, and as always, as people come in the chat, make sure you comment down below in the chat as we're going, just what your thoughts are on this game and just any comments you had, any critiques you had, any praise you want to hand out. And I'll be sure to get to that as it comes in. First of all, Matthew saying, I'll take the W, but not a great road trip. Unfortunately not, but Woll looked better in this game. Yeah, I'll talk about him as we go along, but I thought Joseph Woll much better than his previous 2 outings. He looked a lot more refreshed. Possible that he fully got over the illness that was bothering him about a week and a half ago. It's possible that was causing some struggles in his game, but regardless of what the root cause was, definitely looked better despite the 3 goals against. I don't really blame him for those goals, but we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there. So to start off, before the game even starts, on Sunday, following the Leafs' 7-4 loss to the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday, the Leafs had a team meeting in which Craig Berube stepped up in front of the team and said, basically, this isn't good enough. We haven't been playing good enough. We're making too many mistakes defensively, and we need to get back to our identity. We need to get back to the type of team that we are. And, various team leaders stepped up in that meeting. I've heard Oliver Ekman-Larsson was one of the guys that stepped up in that meeting. So the objective was clear. We want to finish off this road trip playing better, quite frankly. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Leafs were not happy with the way they'd been playing, and they wanted to improve. Then, real quick, roster change for this game. Calle Jarnkrok did draw in, and he was on the second line, going from scratch to second line, so that Pontus Holmberg could slide down to the fourth line. Nick Robertson gets scratched after getting shafted in an assignment on Saturday. He was put on the fourth line, which is not a role that is suited to his game. It's not putting him in a position to succeed, and then he gets scratched, so I feel bad for Robertson. I hope he draws back in on the third line, ideally, when he does get back in the lineup. But Jarnkrok, for what it's worth, I thought was fine in this game. He did get a goal that we'll talk about in a second. So early on, the first major event of the game was the Utah, I almost said Arizona, the Utah Hockey Club gets a power play off of a Brandon Carlo trip. This is the give and take with Brandon Carlo's game. He is very aggressive in the neutral zone, which again, I'll talk about later because I want to talk about the new guys because I haven't gotten a chance to do that yet. But Brandon Carlo, he tries to get aggressive in the neutral zone and cause a turnover. The puck goes by him and he ends up tripping the Utah forward. Utah goes to the power play, but Leafs are able to kill that off. Then the Leafs get a power play, and this I could have shed a tear when I saw this. Mitch Marner picks the puck up behind the Leafs net, and he starts skating. William Nylander starts loading up behind him, and nothing. Mitch Marner does not drop it back, and he just skates into the zone, fires a pass east-west to Matthew Nyes, and the Leafs get possession that way. And I cannot tell you this borderline watershed moment that the Leafs got the zone without relying on the drop back. I could cry. I could cry. It was so beautiful to watch. And then the Leafs, after not really they got some shots and got some chances that were encouraging, but they couldn't break through. Then Utah had a chance to clear the zone in the corner. I don't know what happened there, some sort of whiff, or maybe one of the Leafs got a stick on it, but the Leafs cause a turnover in the offensive zone on the power play. Matthew Nyes kicks it out to Marner, who kicks it over to Willie, and Nylander shoots. It deflects off of Mikhail Sergachev's stick and into the back of the net, so the Leafs take a 1-0 lead there. Then on another power play later in the period, the first unit, so this was, it was inside of 2 minutes that the penalty was taken. The first unit is on for like 30 seconds, and then they go off. And I was mad because typically when you have a power play towards the end of a period, that should be the green light for the top unit to stay out the whole time, knowing that you get to rest in a minute and a half when the period ends. But they go off, much to my chagrin, but it ends up making me have a bunch of egg on my face because Morgan Rielly fires a pass through the middle of the ice, almost gets picked off, but it makes its way to Max Domi. Very bold play by Rielly. Glad it worked out. Then Domi finds Calle Jarnkrok in the slot, who wires home a shot. His first of the season, which in only his third game of the season. Very good to see that. And Jarnkrok taking Nick Robertson's place on the power play. Jarnkrok, for what it's worth, does have a pretty underrated shot. And the fact that he was able to be put in that position, Domi, the one thing he does really well is pass the puck, finds Jarnkrok in the slot, and off you go. There's a 2-0 lead. Then in the second period, this goal was, I do not think very highly of this player, but a good thing happened as a result of him shooting the puck. Simon Benoit fires a shot through traffic. Now, I haven't confirmed this, because at the time, I thought it was Benoit's goal, because I thought it hit Durzi's elbow. Did they end up giving it to Lorentz? No, it was Simon Benoit. So yeah, the shot from the point deflects off of Sean Durzi, former Leafs prospect, hits his elbow, deflects in, and there was a lengthy review on this one, reviewing if there was going to be a high stick or not. Ends up being no high stick because, well, Steven Lorentz didn't touch the puck. It hit off Sean Durzi. Don't know why that review took so long, but regardless, 3-0 Leafs. At this point in the game, okay, this is key. At this point in the game, the shots were 18-6 for Toronto. The Leafs were up 3-0. We're about halfway through the game at this point. Everything is going better than perfect. Like, the offense wasn't quite there 5-on-5, but you got 2 power play goals. You get a lucky one from Benoit on a point shot that gets deflected, and you're feeling good. Utah at this point had generated nothing. Toronto completely shut them down. The only Utah shot that almost went in was a point shot that just found its way through traffic and hit the post. It wasn't like a good chance that they got a post on. No, the Leafs were completely shutting them down. And then in the span of 4 minutes, the wheels completely fall off. Okay, so first things first, there was a chance in transition. Joseph Woll on a breakaway. I think it was Carconi. Great save by Woll. The play keeps going, and the pass through the slot. Morgan Rielly is a little late to get to his man. Deflected up over Joseph Woll's shoulder. No chance for Woll. Fantastic play from Utah. They get on the board. 3-1. Okay, that's fine. It's 3-1. Nothing to worry about. We're still playing very well in this game. The Leafs have still been shutting them down at every turn. Should be no problem. Except it wasn't. Then, for the next minute, the Utah's just running the Leafs show. Absolutely running the Leafs show. The energy is in the building. Actually, I should mention, before I get too far ahead of myself, the energy came back in the building after Simon Benoit, following his goal, gets in a fight with, I don't even remember who it was with, but he attempts a Superman punch, kind of. It was one of the funniest Superman punch attempts I've ever seen, because a typical Superman punch in the MMA realm is when you fake a leg kick and end up throwing a jab. So it kind of looks like a hop. You're kind of like jumping into a punch. Simone Benoit doesn't jump forward into the Superman punch. He jumps up, and then he was like trying to bring the hammer down over the top. Absolutely hilarious, whatever. So that fight gets energy into the Utah bench. The first goal really gets the crowd into it. All the momentum is with Utah, and then they just start running the Leafs show for 45 seconds. And then one of the most egregious defensive zone lapses I've ever seen. Brandon Carlo, who I'm very high on this acquisition. I thought he overall was fine in this game. One of the worst defensive reads I've seen, in which Utah player gets the puck at the point, is streaking it all alone. Brandon Carlo doesn't recognize that John Tavares is behind him, and he ends up covering the same guy as Tavares, which is all well and good, except Nick Schmaltz is left wide open back door. So two Leafs end up covering the one guy who's not really a threat on the play. There's a man streaking down Main Street, and there's a man back door. Neither are covered. 3-2, just like that. A short while later, this would have been like another 2 minutes later, an absolutely egregious penalty call. It was a tripping on Simone Benoit. He didn't trip him. Plain and simple, he didn't trip him. He goes for a hit. I think it was Liam O'Brien, I think is his name. Just slips. He loses an edge. They call it tripping. And of course, a shot from the point. I think it deflects off Carlo, off the man in front. Was it Barrett Hayton who got this one? Yeah, Barrett Hayton. And just like that, it's a tie game. Within 4 minutes, the shots were 18-6. The Leafs were dominating play, and they were up 3-0. And in a 4-minute span, it was suddenly 3-3. And the problem is, after that, the Leafs just basically stopped playing. Most of there were no goals the rest of the way. But I actually have to confirm something real quick. I forgot to do this off stream. So the final shots in this game were 32-26. So let me just do some quick math. So for the first 29 minutes of this game, the shots, like I said, 18-6 Leafs. The back 31. So basically the second half of this game, including overtime actually, so back 36. The second half of this game in overtime, the shots were 26-8 for Utah. This is a Utah team that is outside of the playoffs. They're very young and talented, but they're not good. And the Leafs were getting caved in by them for more than half the game, as well as overtime. In overtime, they had like a 2.5 minute shift. They got like 3 line changes in, and we're just circling, and Keller hit the post. Thank God that didn't go in, because that would have ended the Leafs' night. So, egregious. Another thing that's egregious that I'm going to have to talk about in a second. The Leafs, at 5-on-5 in this game, had no offense. The entire game, they had 2 high danger chances at 5-on-5. 2 high danger chances. To put that in perspective, the Leafs are currently mediocre in this category. In terms of high danger chances per 60 minutes, which is a normal game, the Leafs average a pinch over 10 in a game. It's about like 10 point, was it 1-9 or something? A little over 10. And they're not good in that category. They're mediocre at 19th in the league, okay? So they're already bad in that stat. They had 2 high danger chances in the entire game against a bad Utah team, or mediocre Utah team. I'm sorry. I'll be a little more generous. Against a mediocre Utah team, they had 2 high danger chances at 5-on-5. One of them was Austin Matthews, and not on that one dash he had on the power play. It was, I don't even know what it was. I genuinely don't remember what that Matthews chance was that ended up being counted as a high danger. The other high danger chance was a fantastic pass by John Tavares to Morgan Riley, backhander. Karel Velmelka just made an absolutely fantastic stick save. But they don't need high danger chances. They have the offensive juggernaut that is Simone Benoit. Unfortunately, Luke, the Leafs relying on the Simone Benoits of the world and not getting enough high danger chances in the playoffs has resulted in them scoring 2 goals or less in 13 of 14 playoff games. So the Leafs just got caved in. 0 5-on-5 offense. 0 5-on-5 offense. And we know this is a problem, all right? We know that this has been a problem for this team. This is the way they're coached. This is my philosophical problem with Craig Berube hockey. The Leafs are built to pack it in, block shots, kind of get caved in a little bit, but thrive off of shooting the lights out. They have not developed a forecheck much at all. And it's just unfortunate, man. It's just unfortunate. Did stream just freeze, bro? Please tell me that stream didn't just freeze. Maybe it's just my phone. I don't know. I have chat up on my phone and the stream froze for me. So if stream froze for you, please let me know. I'm so sorry. But it's absolutely egregious. But anyways, we'll get back to that in a second. We go to overtime. The Leafs get caved in, but they survive. Joseph Wool, bless your soul. Thank you so much. You saved the Leafs. And then in the shootout, which I hate the shootout. And you know what? Because the Leafs won, I'm allowed to complain about this. The shootout is not a sport. It is not hockey. It is a glorified all-star game, but it at least ends the game early. So Austin Matthews scores on Vejmelka and on this kind of cool little knuckle puck. I don't even know how to describe it. A changeup of a shot, beats him under the arm. Clayton Keller absolutely undresses Joseph Wool. No respect for his dignity at all. Absolutely undresses Joseph Wool. And then Mitch Marner, excellent patience, sends the Leafs home happy. Leafs win. Now, thank God the Leafs won. Because now the Leafs are... sorry, Matthew. Sorry. At least to change to 10 minutes of 3-on-3. Yes, that'd be great, Luke. That'd be great. I mean, at least for everyone that's on the East Coast, at least this game ends earlier for you. I'm not on the East Coast, so I don't really care. It's only 11:20 for me, but I know it's almost 1:30 in the morning for those on the East Coast. So if you're on the East Coast and you're watching the stream, thank you for sacrificing your sleep for this. So the Leafs go home happy, and that's that. So with that being said, we're going to get into the second segment where we have to talk about some larger context things. With that being said, though, make sure before we get into the second segment, make sure you hit like and subscribe to Game Over Toronto. If you're on a podcasting platform, make sure you follow the show. Make sure you leave us a review. And as always, when we're on these shows, we have a few things we like to shout out, but I personally like to just shout out the network in general. So I should probably mention that we have Game Over shows in every Canadian market. It's not just Toronto. Make sure you go check out Game Over Ottawa, Winnipeg, Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, everyone. There is a Game Over show for every single Canadian market, so make sure you go check them out. Go subscribe to all the Game Over channels, and as I said, follow Game Over Network on Twitter and Bluesky. And Instagram while you're at it. And TikTok while you're at it. So, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the context surrounding this game. We talked about it off the top of the show. I think it was Matthew who said that not a great road trip. And it wasn't. It wasn't. I was on the show doing the Vegas recap. That was a brutal game. The Leafs in Colorado, they had a 4-2 lead. It was a 4-2 lead. They blew it. They blew a lead against Colorado, right? And that was the second time in 3 games that they had blown a lead in the third period, which were their first 2 such games of the season. In this game, they blow a 3-0 lead in 4 minutes. In the blink of an eye, it's 3-3 from 3-0 after dominating the first half of the game defensively at least. So, a few things are true that we have to remember. Number one, the Leafs have played a lot of hockey on the road a lot. They've been traveling a lot since the Four Nations break. There has been not a lot of rest. The Leafs, and not to make excuses, but the Leafs have not had the easiest schedule in that aspect. Another thing is true, that the Leafs have still been winning a good amount of these games, especially since the Four Nations break. However, the reason they had a team meeting following the 3-game losing streak is the Leafs were not good enough. And honestly, that's been a trend most of the season. If we go back to the beginning of the season, for the first, let's call it 2 months. Let's call it 2 months. The Leafs developed a reputation, and I was saying it on this show, so were Lauren and Dominic, that the Leafs were a good defensive team. They were good defensively. And I was saying the reason that their goaltenders had such good stats were that they were kind of being sheltered by a good defensive system. And for the first 2 months of the season, I still believe that to be true. Since December, I think the real cutoff is like December 14th that the major shift happens. But since December, the defensive structure has not been nearly as airtight as it was to begin the season. The goaltending has gone from being maybe a little inflated by a good defensive system to bailing them out on a regular basis. Anthony Stolarz has been phenomenal this season. Joseph Woll, in the couple games that he was bad in, the Leafs, somehow the Leafs beat Pittsburgh. Somehow. What a chaotic game that was. And then he gets pulled against Vegas and the Leafs get killed. So, the Leafs are trying to get back to being a good defensive team. The problem is, there's a different problem now, in how they're constructed. As the season wears on, the games get tighter. Rush chances are at a premium. But it's still the regular season, which means the rush chances per 60 are generally still higher than they will be in the playoffs. And the Leafs are not a fast team. In fact, they're rather slow. Meaning, a faster team, like Utah, really can give them problems. Because, man, the Leafs are so susceptible to giving up rush chances, to just... when the play just... like a turnover in the neutral zone is such a problem for this Leafs team. They're relatively good at stopping the cycle. Relatively, right? They haven't been the last couple games, but in general, they're pretty good. But rush chances, they've struggled with for years. And it's just not good, man. It's not good. So going forward, what I saw in the first half of this game, I think is translatable, right? I think it's relatively translatable in that the Leafs can be a good defensive team. But, first of all, Chris Tanev, please get healthy. I need you back so badly. The Leafs have got to figure out how to, A, defend the rush better, and B, start completing passes out of the defensive zone and getting some offense, man. Getting some offense going, because the forecheck hasn't been there consistently. The rush chances, non-existent for this team. The Leafs have like 2 players that can generate rush chances. William Nylander and like Bobby McMahon. Max Domi has the skating to do it, but he doesn't. Like, he passes every time the puck is on his stick. So he's not generating many chances. And that's just... It's just tough, man. The Leafs have a problem in the way that they're generating offense, in that they're not. And they have a problem in part because their inability to transition from defense to offense smoothly. This has been a problem in past seasons, where in the playoffs, between the years of 2018 and and last year, basically since the Washington series, actually it might be every single playoff series of the Matthews era, the Leafs' number one problem is actually not something that's super obvious on the surface. The number one problem they have is their inability to convert defensive zone retrievals. So that's when, if the puck is dumped in to the corner, when a Leafs defender picks up the puck, and being able to convert that into controlled zone exits. So that's exiting the zone with the puck on your stick. The Leafs' inability to do that has cost them mightily in the playoffs in their inability to create offense because of it. So when I see Brandon Carlo, for example, I like Brandon Carlo a lot. I think he's a very, very solid, deep, like pure defensive defenseman. However, Brandon Carlo with the puck on his stick, I don't love it. Morgan Rielly sucks against the forecheck. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is not great against the forecheck. Jake McCabe was throwing pizzas all over the ice tonight. Philip Myers, Simone Benoit, I don't think have completed a pass in 2025. Chris Tanev is decent at this. He makes a good breakout pass, but the problem for the Leafs is they still, for as decent as they are at stopping a cycle, they are not good against the forecheck still. And the problem is when you get to the playoffs, being able to quickly retrieve the puck in your own zone and quick out, exit with possession, we're going the other way. That is going to be so important. And the problem is the way the Leafs are built and the way the Leafs are coached is off the glass and out. Just lob it to the neutral zone, reset, reload, and we'll just defend, pack it in, block shots. And that's not a way to win. It is a way to defend a lead, kind of, not efficiently. It's kind of a way to defend the lead. It is not a way to play in close games. And I'm willing to wager the Leafs are going to struggle in this category again, because they've always struggled in this category, because they are taught off the glass and out, which is good for a youth hockey team. It is not good for an NHL team that still has to go score goals. And especially a team that has no transition offense. The reason the Leafs have no transition offense is that it's because they rely too heavily on lobbing it out of their own zone and then dumping it in. They don't really exit the zone with possession, and they don't really enter the zone with possession all that often. So that's something I'm looking out for as we head down the stretch of this season is, can the Leafs improve their transition offense? Not even necessarily in converting offensive zone entries with possession to chances. I'm more so looking for, can you take a controlled or a defensive zone retrieval, convert that to a controlled zone exit, and then subsequently convert that into a controlled zone entry or at least a puck retrieval in the offensive zone. That's what I'm going to be looking for, and that is something that, not that it's going to determine whether they'll win the division or not, but that's just one aspect of their play that I'm super frustrated with that I want to see improve. So we're going to move on to the third segment. As we do, if you are looking to support the Game Over Network in another way than just subscribing, you can go check out our merch over at thegameovernetwork.com. You can find merch for all the Canadian markets, Toronto, Calgary, all that. We have shirts, hoodies, mugs, hats, toques. Go check it out, thegameovernetwork.com for our merch. And you can also check out our Patreon down and below if you want to support us another way, a network of young creators. Go check out our Patreon. That'll be in the description of this stream or video if you're watching after the fact. So now, this hurts. I don't want to talk about this. I really don't. Austin Matthews has not been good enough. Austin Matthews has scored 3 goals in his last 13 games. He had a 12-game point streak coming into this game, and he had 3 goals on that point streak. 18 points, 3 goals. Austin Matthews had a couple chances in this game. He didn't look like Austin Matthews. And actually, here's a question for all of you. When is the last time you can recall Austin Matthews having a dominant game where he was the best player on the ice? And I will clarify, for the Leafs, because he was the best player on the ice, at least for Team USA, in that Four Nations face-off championship game. He was a legitimately dominant presence in that game. But in terms of when he did that last as a Leaf, when's the last time you remember that? The fact that I can't remember off the top of my head, and that troubles me, because Austin Matthews is the highest paid player in the league this season. Austin Matthews is the best goal scorer in the league. Not this season, but he is in general the best goal scorer in the league. The Leafs need Austin Matthews to be a $13.4 million player. The Toronto Maple Leafs, if they want any chance of winning the division, if they want any chance of doing damage in the playoffs, they need Austin Matthews to be Austin Matthews. We have not gotten that level of Austin Matthews this year. He's probably going to score like 30 goals, which will be a career low for him, believe it or not. Unless he gets to, I think 34 is, I think, his current career low. There's a very good chance he gets under that this year. I was about to say beats it, but he maybe beats it. He just needs to get hot for like 2 weeks. But now, the same again, grain of salt, because in 2023, the year the Leafs actually won a playoff series, Matthews scored 40 goals, had a down year, but then he ripped 5 in a 4-game stretch. So that's somewhat encouraging. But he has not been himself this year. He has been way too reliant on Mitch Marner, which, for as good as Mitch Marner's been, Matthews hasn't been creating that open ice for himself. It's possible that maybe teams are keying in on him more. I don't know. But Matthews has just not been creating the space for himself. And he's the other thing, one of the best attributes Matthews has, which again, we're talking about underrated things that maybe aren't surface level. Austin Matthews is so good at getting open. It's the Steph Curry thing. Like, for you basketball fans out there, Steph Curry is so good off ball when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, because he'll run around, he'll tuck behind screens, he'll do all these like crazy moves, and he'll find, open space for himself to catch and shoot. Austin Matthews is super good at getting open to then catch and release the puck. Receive the puck and quickly shoot it. Haven't seen that as much this season. It's not that he's lazy. It's not that he looks lethargic. He just hasn't been finding it as much. I don't know how to describe it, and I don't know what the reason is. Could be Craig Berube telling him to be more cautious, not take as many risks. I hate that if that's the case, because Matthews was responsible defensively anyways, and this year he actually has taken a step back defensively while also being worse offensively. This will probably be the second season of his career so far, only the second, that he'll have more assists than goals, which I don't love. Austin Matthews needs to find another gear. Whether or not that's with Mitch Marner on his line or not, I don't know. But he needs to find another gear, because William Nylander is going to have a career high in goals. Mitch Marner is probably going to break 100 points for the first time. John Tavares is having a fantastic season. Excuse me. The other 3 members of the core 4 forwards are having pretty good seasons statistically. Matthews is the one that isn't, and he needs to be Austin Matthews. Otherwise, it's going to be a short spring once again. Now, what are some ways that we can unlock that version of Matthews? Number 1, maybe, and we saw this in overtime, where Matthews, he just wanted the puck on his stick and he was trying things. He was going through there was a power play rush where Matthews just takes it upon himself and drives the net. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of Austin Matthews demanding the puck, right? You saw in overtime, he got that chance, drives to the net, whatever, he's trying things. Puck goes back to Morgan Rielly, and Matthews like, give me the puck, give me the puck, give me the puck. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that, because when Matthews takes ownership of the puck in the offensive zone, good things tend to happen, especially when he has that kind of tenacity, when he has that kind of determination to get to the net. I want to see Matthews driving more. Mitch Marner, I think, could benefit from this too. It drove me crazy that there was a play where Mitch Marner got the puck in the lower slot. He did not pass it. He did not lose it. And the shot attempt he got was from the point. That drove me nuts. But And Marner had a lot of turnovers in this game that wasn't his best game, especially on the power play. But Matthews, he hasn't been getting the power play looks. He had a really nice play against the Avalanche where he was a little bit lower by the goal line and he just waits and baits Devon Toews for half a second, opens him up, feeds a pass through his legs to Tavares, who scores. Maybe Matthews, I've been advocating that maybe we should put the power play in Matthews' hands, put him on the half wall, put him lower in the zone, and give him a one-timer option for him to shoot it, a one-timer option to pass to, so that'd be William Nylander, a bumper option, and then I'd put Mitch Marner below the goal line so that Marner can then pass from below the goal line to either Tavares in front or Nylander on the half wall. I'd probably run a defenseman on the point in this scenario, but probably a little late in the season for that. Anyways, I just wanted to say, Austin Matthews, I've been disappointed with how he hasn't had enough individual chances compared to where he usually is. He hasn't looked dangerous enough as a goal scorer, and that's a major problem, and that is something that needs to be addressed. So I just want to talk about that briefly. I'll turn us over into our final segment now. This is the part of the show where we invite questions. You guys have been awesome in the chat so far, so if you have any questions about this game, the larger context of the season, the division race, how the Panthers game on Thursday, this is the time to ask your questions. And of course, as you do, make sure to hit like on the stream and subscribe to Game Over Toronto. Follow us if you're on a podcasting platform, leave us a review. Follow us on social media. So, as we get into this final segment, I am going to briefly talk about the new guys just while I wait for your questions, because I haven't had a chance to talk about these acquisitions. On Wednesday's broadcast against Vegas, I openly challenged Brad Treliving, and I said, look, the Panthers and Lightning have made big moves. You've got to answer. He did. Brad Treliving answered. He stepped up, and he answered the call. Now, I'm not the biggest Scott Laughton fan. I don't know if anyone's really that big of a Scott Laughton fan, per se. For $1.5 million for this year and next, I'm a Scott Laughton fan. Now, he was really hard on himself after the Colorado game. He was okay in this one. He took a really stupid penalty. That put the Leafs down 5-on-3. Luckily, they killed it. He's just kind of not an offensive factor at all. He's a good penalty killer. He's tenacious. I like him on the forecheck. But I don't... He's like a slightly better... Well, he's a better version of David Kampf, where he's good defensively, he's a great penalty killer, he's pretty good on the forecheck, which is an area Kampf isn't as good at. But you're not counting on Laughton for offense. Now, he was producing at a legit 40-point pace this year and last year in Philadelphia, and I'd like to see him get back to that. I think he should be able to score at a 15-goal pace, and I want him to bang in a couple goals in the playoffs, obviously. But I think Scott Laughton will be useful to help the penalty kill that's been struggling since December. Brandon Carlo, I mentioned it. That's a guy that gets me warm and fuzzy. That is a guy that I genuinely really like his fit with this team. I like his fit alongside Morgan Rielly. I love what he brings to the penalty kill. I love what he brings in transition. My favorite thing that Brandon Carlo brings, he's super lengthy, right? He's 6'5". He's got a massive wingspan, and he knows how to use it. You'll see, and this will be something that to look out for the rest of the regular season and in the playoffs. When a play is coming at him in transition, he is fantastic at using his length to disrupt passes in the neutral zone and turn it into a counterattack opportunity for the offense. Now, that could get him into trouble. In this game, we saw that early on. He took a tripping penalty trying to make a play in transition. We also saw this in Colorado where he tried to make a play in transition, except the player he tried to make a play against was Nathan McKinnon, who then turned on the Jets and just skated right by him. It's going to happen. He is a more aggressive player. That being said, you're going to notice the benefits very quickly, and compared to someone who doesn't have a strong gap control in Morgan Rielly alongside of him, having a strong gap control makes the world a difference, and I will appreciate him for that forever. He's also very good at stopping the cycle. He had a very bad lapse in judgment in this game, but he defends the front of the net generally really well. He's huge. He's tenacious. I really like what he's going to bring. I think those two could quickly become two of the three best penalty killers the Leafs have. Chris Tanev, of course, being the best one because he's Chris Tanev. He's one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league. I really like the prospect of Brandon Carlo being your 4. So McCabe Tanev is your top pair. That's your shutdown pair. You're playing them against top lines all the time in the playoffs. Riley Carlo is your second pair. You rely on Morgan Riley to transport the puck and be more of an offensive presence. And Brandon Carlo is there to not babysit, but keep Morgan Riley in check, to shelter him a little bit defensively, help him out in front of the net, and he's also a really freaking good penalty killer. He's a better version of Lyubushkin or Luke Shen from previous years, and he's here for multiple seasons at $3.485 million. Fantastic. So I really like those additions and what they're going to bring to this team long-term and short-term. They haven't been fantastic in Colorado and here in Utah. They've been fine. They haven't been great. They haven't been bad. They've had some bad moments. They've had some good moments, especially Carlo. He's had good moments. Like, Carlo's one of those guys that you're not going to notice a ton. But when you focus on him and you say, okay, let me watch 25 on the ice right here, you're going to notice a couple nice plays he makes. But in general, he's one of those you don't have to worry about him guys. Of course, he had, like I said, a couple bad moments, but generally a good defensive player that you don't need to worry about. Scott Laughton, similar thing. You're not going to notice him a ton, but it's the little things that he does that are valuable. And for $1.5 million, like, beautiful. With that being said, if you guys have questions, this is your last chance. Any questions at all about the Leafs? What are your thoughts on the new guys? What are your thoughts on Austin Matthews and what he has to do? I guess I should catch up on some of these comments. Luke earlier on said the Leafs have 3 more games against the Panthers. Those games scare me. They scare me as well, but if you want to win the division, those are the games you have to win. Those are the games you have to win. Those 3 games against the Panthers, I think, are going to determine who wins the division, so buckle up for Thursday, man. It should be a ton of fun. Matthew says, the Leafs medical staff are having issues this year. I think Tanev is the 4th player this year that has not had the treatment work as expected and extend their injury time. I actually don't think it's that. I think the Leafs are just underreporting the severity of injuries a lot. Because it's not a coincidence that we've had 4 instances of the Leafs saying a day-to-day or week-to-week injury suddenly becomes a lot longer than originally anticipated. When Tanev got hurt, we were told, he might miss a game. He might miss a couple games, but he shouldn't be out longer than a few days. That was a week and a half ago. And he's skating, which is a good sign. He's skating. Maybe he gets back in on Thursday. I would love if he got back on Thursday. I don't know, though. When Tanev comes back, I want to see Carlo with OEL as the second pair and keep Riley's minutes low with Myers. That is an interesting prospect, and I know that's one that has been talked about in Leafland. I'm open to it. I'd say give Riley 10 games. So they've had 2. Give them 8 more games. Riley and Carlo is the pairing. And then, actually, I want to see games where OEL and then Myers or Benoit is the third pair, because I really want to see OEL back on the left side. And then if that doesn't work for the final 10 games, final 8 games, whatever, try OEL with Carlo, because that would be a better defensive pairing. It wouldn't be very good offensively, and I worry about OEL's usage getting a little too high. I think OEL will be fantastic in a third pair role, as he was for the Panthers in the playoffs last year and all season last year, and as he was at the start of the year for the Leafs. I think OEL is best suited for a third pair role. He can drive the third pair. He could be your 5th defenseman. He can drive a pairing, and hopefully he babysits Myers or Benoit and keeps them afloat. The problem I have with the prospect of a Riley-Myers pair is that is a genuinely horrifying defensive pairing. in terms of the actual defensive aspect of the game. Myers will shoot, hit, and just in general be a very chaotic defenseman. Morgan Rielly, we know, is a chaotic defenseman, but he brings an aspect offensively you like. I think I would rather Rielly Carlo, but then that's not your top pair. You're playing McCabe Tanev against top competition. You shelter Rielly a little bit more, and hopefully that works. If Rielly can't make it work with Carlo, we have to have a much more complicated conversation in the offseason. This team won't win in the playoffs. I mean, we'll see. They haven't given you reason to believe they'll win in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. I was glad when he scored that shootout goal. I didn't know he could hit the net. That's, I believe, about Austin Matthews. Yeah, it was good to see that. Tanev is injury prone. Rielly can't play defense, etc. Tanev is injury prone, but I fully expect him to be healthy for the playoffs. And if he is, he'll be solid. He's actually the injury prone label. Like here, let's look at Chris Tanev's game. I'm going to look at his DB real quick. Chris Tanev, Hockey DB, Shadow Hockey DB. So early on in his career, it'd be like 38 games, 64 games, 70 games, 69 games, 53 games, 42 games. And then he goes to Calgary. This is the COVID season, so 56 games, plays every game. The next year, 82 games, then 65, then 56. But then 56 with Calgary, then he gets traded to Dallas, so he actually plays like 70-something there, 75. And then this year he's played 57 games, and he also played 19 games for Dallas in the playoffs last year. He's not as injury prone as you think he is. He does have injury concerns. That is valid, but I fully expect him to be fine for the playoffs. Tanev will play through a collapsed lung in the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. Rielly not being strong on D is not good, but maybe we can play him in less minutes. Exactly. You have to just don't give Rielly top competition. Shelter him a little bit. Give him 70% offensive zone starts. And in theory, you should get a positive return on investment with that. In theory. But we have to wait and see. That's why we play the games. Would you put Robertson back in? I would. I would like to see a lineup composition of the second line being McMahon or Yarncroke. Probably McMahon. McMahon, Tavares, Nylander, and then Domi, Lawton, Robertson. Or you could draw Robertson on the second line if you want, but I want to see what the Domi-Robertson pairing looks like when Domi isn't at center and they have a babysitter with them. Bobby McMahon, for as useful of a player he is, he's a winger and he is not able to cover up Domi's defensive warts. He's also not as good on the forecheck as Scott Lawton. So Lawton, he's a good forechecker, he's good defensively, he will allow Domi to play the wing. I think you could get that duo to do some damage together, but you have to, I don't know. We have to see it in action. Robertson, I don't know if he gets back in against Florida. He will get back in at some point because you can't just scratch him at this point. He's too useful of a player to just sit on the bench and in the press box. I know that Berube has an obsession with Pontus Holmberg. For what it's worth, Holmberg looked a lot more at home on the fourth line tonight. Yarncroke looked pretty good on the second line, so I don't know. You got to find a way. But with that being said, that is going to be where we wrap the stream. So thank you everyone for all the comments throughout. Super fun chatting with you guys as always. Make sure to hit like and subscribe to Game Over Toronto. And I believe, it might be Dominic. I think Dominic will be back on Thursday. Someone will be back Thursday following a very, very fascinating matchup with the Florida Panthers. One that is the start of a 3-game series with them down the stretch that will determine who wins the division. So thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully the Leafs can pull it out Thursday. Hope you guys check out the stream then. See you guys next time. Cheers.